Stop saying I don't know. I don't know. I do not know. I don't know.
Imagine this: Cairo, a city alive with noise and color, a city that never sleeps. But beneath the lights and the rhythm of daily life, a secret was festering. A man who looked like any other teacher, who smiled into cameras and taught English online, was hiding something darker than anyone could imagine. His name was Kareem, but soon the world would know him by another name: the Butcher of New Cairo. Before we dive deeper into this chilling story, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe to Gang Stories. This channel is where we uncover the darkest true crime tales from around the world. Stories you won't believe until you hear them. Kareem was born into privilege. He attended elite schools, eventually graduating from the American University in Cairo. To neighbors and colleagues, he was the man you trusted with your children's education. He spoke fluent English, wore crisp shirts, and walked with the confidence of someone who seemed to have his life under control. But behind closed doors, cracks were already beginning to show. His temper was sharp. His need for control was overwhelming. And in his private life, he grew obsessed with power, dominance, and submission. In 2014, Kareem married Lona Yakut. At first, it looked like a perfect story: a smart teacher, a supportive wife, and soon a young son named Zayn. But the fairy tale shattered quickly. Lona would later testify that behind the polite exterior was a man who threatened, manipulated, and abused. By 2020, she fled the marriage, seeking safety from a partner who had transformed into a monster within the walls of their home. While his marriage was collapsing, Kareem was building another life online. On TikTok and Instagram, he branded himself as an English mentor. Short videos of grammar lessons, jokes about American slang, tips for young learners. He cultivated trust, projecting warmth and charisma. To his audience, he was harmless, even charming. Yet those same audiences had no idea they were feeding views and likes to a man who, behind the screen, was planning darker appetites. The year was 1916. Cairo's new Tagamoa district was expanding, filled with families moving into freshly built apartments. Among them was Mariam, a 23-year-old university student, bright and ambitious. She had been taking English lessons online, where she first encountered Kareem. To her, he was the ideal mentor: patient, professional, even inspiring. He offered to meet her in person under the pretext of helping her prepare for a scholarship abroad. She agreed, not knowing it was a decision that would seal her fate. On a cold evening in November, Mariam was last seen entering Kareem's apartment. Witnesses recalled her smiling, holding a notebook and pen, but she never walked out again. Neighbors reported hearing muffled noises that night, a thud, then silence. Kareem later told police she never showed up, but Mariam's family knew the truth. Their daughter had vanished. By 2018, Kareem had perfected his mask. He was no longer just a teacher. He was a trusted figure in online communities, especially among young women searching for mentorship or opportunities abroad. This time, the victim was Salma, a 27-year-old aspiring journalist. She admired Kareem's confidence, his perfect English, and the way he spoke about changing lives through language. She confided in her friends that Kareem had promised her access to international contacts, a chance to land an internship at a media company in the US. To her, it was an opportunity she couldn't refuse. She told her family she was going to meet a mentor. They thought nothing of it. That night, in late May, Salma entered Kareem's home. Neighbors recalled a flicker of lights, and one said they heard music playing unusually loud. It was as if the sound was meant to cover something else. By morning, Salma was gone. Her phone went dark, her social media account silent. Her friends posted desperate messages online. "Where are you, Salma?" But there was no answer. Kareem continued to upload TikTok videos the very next day, smiling, teaching idioms, pretending nothing had happened. It was the summer of 2019, and Kareem's confidence had grown dangerously bold. He was convinced he could outsmart anyone. His next victim was Nure, a 19-year-old college freshman from a well-off family. Nure was curious, adventurous, and eager to improve her English before applying for an exchange program in Europe. Kareem saw her vulnerability as an open door. He invited her to a private tutoring session, claiming he would help her prepare for the TOEFL exam. She trusted him. After all, dozens of students had praised him online. She walked into his apartment on a hot July afternoon. Neighbors noticed her because she wore a bright yellow dress. That dress would later become a haunting memory for everyone who saw her. Inside, something was different. Kareem had grown careless. The sounds that night, a sudden scream, a chair scraping, then silence, were reported by multiple residents. But when questioned, Kareem smiled and said he had been rehearsing a drama scene for his students. The explanation was bizarre, but without proof, the police couldn't act. Nure was never seen again. Her parents launched a campaign, flooding social media with her photo in the yellow dress. Posts read, "Find Nure." For the first time, Kareem's name began circulating in whispers. People were connecting the dots: Mariam, Salma, and now Nure. By early 2020, Kareem was playing a dangerous game. 3 women had already vanished, and while police had no solid evidence, whispers were growing louder. Families were demanding answers. Social media was boiling with suspicion. But instead of laying low, Kareem grew bolder. His next victim was Hala, a 25-year-old aspiring actress. She met Kareem through Instagram, where he promised to help her practice English for auditions abroad. His messages were full of encouragement, charm, and what looked like genuine support. Hala believed him. On a cold evening in February, Hala told her roommate she was going to meet a teacher who could open doors. She wore a red scarf, something her family remembered vividly. She never returned. That night, several neighbors reported a chilling detail. They heard a woman shouting, "Let me go," followed by the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. This time, the police acted. They questioned Kareem, searched his apartment, and found traces: a strand of hair, a red thread caught under the sofa. But without a body, the case stalled again. Kareem laughed it off, telling followers online that people were jealous of his success. But the cracks in his mask were spreading. For the first time, newspapers carried his name alongside the missing women. People in New Cairo began whispering a terrifying nickname: Safa el-Tagamoa, the Butcher of New Cairo. By late 2021, Kareem had begun to lose control. His crimes were no longer hidden shadows, they were threads connecting, and people were whispering louder than ever before. But instead of stopping, Kareem pushed further. His arrogance convinced him he was untouchable. His next target was Dina, a 21-year-old medical student with a brilliant future. She was active on social media, where Kareem first approached her, praising her intelligence and offering to help her with English medical terminology.
Dina was cautious, but Kareem's polished reputation and his calm, teacher-like persona won her trust. On a rainy October evening, Dina was last seen entering Kareem's car outside her university. Witnesses described the scene vividly, Dina holding an umbrella, Kareem smiling from the driver's seat. That image became the last trace of her life. But this time, Kareem made mistakes. CCTV cameras captured his car driving toward New Cairo, and later, footage revealed him carrying a large black bag into his apartment at midnight. Hours later, he was seen dragging the same bag out. For investigators, this was the break they had been waiting for. Dina's disappearance sparked outrage. Her fellow students organized protests demanding justice. Social media exploded with her photo under the hashtag Justice for Dina. For the first time, Kareem was not just a suspect, he was the prime suspect. His name was everywhere, and the walls around him were finally closing in. By early 2022, the pressure on Kareem was unbearable. The case of Dina had ignited a fire across Egypt. Newspapers ran headlines daily, social media was flooded with theories, and TV talk shows dissected every detail. Kareem tried to maintain his online persona, posting English lessons and motivational quotes. But the comments were different now. Murderer. Where is Dina? We know who you are. Police surveillance intensified. Investigators tapped into Kareem's digital life, tracing his messages, emails, and hidden files. What they uncovered was chilling. Encrypted notes about experiments, photos of victims in their last moments, and detailed logs of times and dates. It was no longer suspicion. It was evidence. In March 2022, police moved in. At dawn, a special unit surrounded his apartment in New Cairo. Kareem was calm when they entered, almost smiling, as if he believed he could still talk his way out. But the silence in the room spoke louder than words. On his computer, open on the screen, was a draft TikTok script titled, "The Perfect Crime." News spread instantly. Crowds gathered outside the station, chanting, demanding justice. For the first time, Egypt had seen the mask of an online influencer ripped away to reveal the face of a serial killer. Safa el-Tagamoa was no longer a whisper. He was real. Inside the interrogation room, Kareem remained composed. He denied everything at first, laughing, mocking the investigators. But as evidence piled on the table, the photos, the digital files, the timelines, his smile began to fade. Investigators uncovered a chilling pattern. Each victim had been documented. Notes about their personalities, weaknesses, even the exact words Kareem used to lure them in. His laptop contained folders labeled with their initials, MS for Mariam, SH for Salma, NK for Nure, HA for Hala, and finally DM for Dina. Inside were audio recordings, conversations that began friendly, then shifted into fear and pleading. Forensic teams also discovered traces of blood beneath the floorboards of Kareem's apartment. DNA matched Mariam and Nure. The red thread found months earlier matched Hala's scarf. The black bag seen on CCTV carried microscopic fibers from Dina's umbrella. Piece by piece, the puzzle fit together. And then came the most disturbing revelation. Kareem had written a journal he titled Lessons in Control. Page after page, he described not just what he did, but how it made him feel, powerful, unstoppable, godlike. In one entry he wrote, "They see me as a teacher, but I am the test they cannot pass." For investigators, there was no longer any doubt. Kareem was not only guilty, he was a predator who documented his crimes like trophies. When Kareem finally stood in court, the room was packed. Families of the victims sat in the front rows, clutching photos of their daughters, their faces carved with grief. Journalists filled every corner, their cameras flashing, desperate to capture the man who had haunted New Cairo for years. The prosecution laid out the case with brutal precision. They presented Kareem's journal, the digital files, the DNA evidence, and the testimonies of women he had manipulated and abused long before the murders began. Each witness added another nail in his coffin. Kareem's defense tried to paint him as mentally unstable, arguing that he was a man broken by childhood trauma and a failed marriage, but the jury was unmoved. They saw the pattern, the cold calculation, the pleasure he took in documenting every step. This was not madness. This was method. For days, the trial dominated Egyptian headlines. People whispered his name in coffee shops, debated his guilt in taxis, and shared theories on social media. To the public, he was no longer Kareem the teacher. He was Safa el-Tagamawa, the Butcher of New Cairo. Finally, the judge delivered the sentence. Kareem was found guilty on all counts: 5 murders, multiple counts of assault, and obstruction of justice. His punishment? Death by hanging. The courtroom erupted, some in tears of relief, others in anger that justice had come too late. Kareem showed no remorse. As guards led him away, he smirked one final time, as if even in defeat, he had won by etching his name forever into Egypt's darkest history. And that was the story of Kareem, the man the world will forever remember as Safa el-Tagamawa, the Butcher of New Cairo. A reminder that sometimes the monsters we fear most don't hide in the shadows. They sit right beside us, wearing the mask of normal life. If this story gripped you, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to Gang Stories, and turn on the notification bell, because the darkest tales from around the world are still waiting to be told. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.